Hi everyone, Tillian here. Just wanted to make a quick video regarding the HP inflation in regards to the current release of MOC. I've seen a lot of content and a lot of videos and a lot of Twitter content regarding our current MOC release and the inflation of the HP metrics. Just really wanted to dive into the data and talk about this from an analytical point of view and kind of get some insight as to what and why, and then how we can address this logically, and then how can we kind of talk about this as, analytically and correctly as possible. So I'm going to go into some of the data here just to kind of go into this. And just for reference, I have cleared the current MOC 12, so I have a kind of a baseline understanding of the feelings and emotions that people are kind of coming up with. But anytime I have those feelings as well, I try to dive into the data and try to look at this from a point of view that makes a little bit more sense. So I did pull the data regarding all of 2.0 MOC HP, and then I incrementally looked at it from every other release of MOC to try to give it a trends of statistical value when looking at MOC. So, out of some points I really wanted to make really quickly here, just looking at the data, for the entirety of the 2.x patch content, HP increased 181% for single target and 184% for AoE. Looking at these increases incrementally, which means we looked at these jumping every other MOC release to try to address trends. The largest jumps were between the Big Sleep and Dancing with the Dreams releases. Single target HP increased 72% between those two MOC releases. Your AoE would actually decrease by 7%, but would increase over the following two new releases by 87%. Which, if you look at it from statistically from that -7, it actually comes out to be an effective increase of 74% based on our previous baseline. So just to kind of explain that a little bit, we did see a dip of 7% by our AoE for those two releases, even though it was the largest increase for single target HP in the entire 2.x cycle. However, in the next patch, two cycles, we saw an 87% increase, which effectively, based on our baseline previously, only brings it up to 74. So we did see a large increase to single target without seeing an increase to AoE, and then it corrects itself correctly after that. Notably, that was part of the second half of the 2.7 patch. That patch had no second premium character, though it did rerun both Aventurine and Acheron, but also was the second half of the Rappa patch and was also part of the Sunday Jingyuan Resurgence. So all of those were actually pretty helpful in completing those MOC cycles and dramatically showed that they were better in ways because of the single target increases without the AoE increases behind them. Now, in my opinion, the HP inflation over the 2.x cycle, this is in part due to the direct increase in powerful character releases, more powerful synergy releases, as well as new and more powerful relic sets that have been increasing our output dramatically as well. In some ways, this is the counter to the pendulum of those power increases. It feels in some parts worse because it is retroactive to the gains we were receiving previously. So, making it feel almost like we're losing power. So in an RPG sense, if you think about this, you've worked hard to gain power increases, and then you're effectively seeing those power increases decrease dramatically between cycle patches because of the massive increase of HP over the last few cycles. So this, in my opinion, is not necessarily a problem with the HP pools so much as it is with the game design. And not allowing us to effectively gain that power, but we gained it too quickly, and then they had to counter that, and then we're losing power. Which losing power never feels good to the player, especially in an RPG sense. So even if the reasons to do so makes perfect sense for the endgame perspective, if we were doing too much damage, if we were clearing at too high of rate, all of that may be true. But if to a player, it does not feel good to do XYZ and then you're not able to do XYZ. Now, we have to balance this with the fact that we are playing a game that's trying to incentivize players to spend money, or as much money as they can, to buy new characters. And the design and story and lore of the characters is only going to incentivize so many people. You need to incentivize people by allowing them to be good in the game. Now, there is something that we can talk about in regards to like the agreement between the player base and what we're willing to kind of understand and kind of agree upon. However, there's also a line that we kind of have to talk about where it is and isn't egregious, right? So I think that that's important why we look at this data. Now, the topic of game design and the failure to account for power increases in the moment are a topic of a totally different conversation. Um, the question we need to ask for the topic is this HP inflation too much for the current game space, and does it create a requirement to pull those new characters that we spoke about previously? I.e., is this really a problem for everyone says that it seems to be, or does it feel bad because we are now lacking the power that we previously had, or it feels that we do? Now, the longer I look at this data, and especially once you kind of use it to cross-reference with the Pride Win average clear cycles that we're seeing in 2.6, we're seeing that the average character is not getting at least a 5-cycle clear, even at the best, the highest cycles. So just looking at the AHP increases incrementally over the short period of time, as well as the dramatic increases in average cycle clears, you can kind of see that this is obviously creating a bit of turmoil in the community, and understandably so. I don't necessarily think the increase in HP is a bad thing on its face. I think that it was obvious that they had given up too much power to certain synergistic teams that had just worked too well, and that even without massive Eidolon or even signature investments, were able to basically 2 and 3 cycle content and brute force it if necessary. That it made it seem almost too easy to a lot of players. And if you had a highly invested account, you were welcomed easily into the 0 cycle community in some cases, depending on the team and format. Now you're seeing those same teams struggle to get 2, 3, 4 cycle clears on a side, and it feels a lot worse to that player because they're coming from a space so dramatically different so quickly that it's a humongous power loss in their own perception, even if from an in-game view it's actually probably better for the lifespan of the game. If everyone is just clearing all of the content incredibly easily and quickly, there's no desire to change that up. There's no desire to get new characters outside of just the desire to pull new characters, right? So I think that it was probably a thing that needed to happen. I just think that the dramatic increase was just a bad show, and it is just negative to the player base because it makes you feel worse. It makes your characters feel worse. It makes your teams feel worse. And that's my opinion. And I wanted to kind of share some analytics and statistics around this, and then give my opinion as to why I think so many people are feeling this way currently. Now, if you wanted to ask my opinion on a solution, what I would have done is I would have done a similar HP increase, but I would have done it over a longer period of time, or I would have waited till the 3.0 release after to kind of do a dramatic increase in power. I would have treated it almost like an MMO expansion, where there's kind of an understanding from the player base that once you enter this new land, there's going to be new gear, there's going to be new characters, there's going to be new items and rewards, new synergies, and new boss fights that require new ideas and tactics that that the player just has a normal expectation that, okay, I'm going to have to adapt to this new world with these new items and things, and it's just a normal, more understandable perception by your player base that there's going to be a bit of a power creep because of the new expansion. That the number in front of the decimal is pretty strong psychologically for a lot of players. That would have been my opinion. I think that they did this too quickly and at the end of an expansion, and I think incentivizing players to get new characters as well as balancing the power around it is probably the likely culprit of this entire thing. But those are just my thoughts. Remember, games are a conversation. I'd love to hear what you have to say down in the comments, so please feel free to add those down there. I'll try to engage with as many as I can. That being said, my name's Tillian. I'm a newish content creator here in the space. I like to talk about video games on a deep level, from a dev standpoint, from a perception standpoint, from a psychological standpoint. I like to really dive deep into what makes these games work and how they kind of interact with us as a medium. Those are things I just really enjoy talking about. So if you like my content or would like to see some more of it, or just want to argue with me, feel free to like, share, subscribe. I appreciate all that. I also stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/TillianPlay. I like to stream every Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, and Friday. You can find me there and argue with me as well. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys next time. Bye, y'all.